Alright guys, on today's video we are going to be talking about how age affects our performance as athletes as we get older. Well, that's implied by the title. But we are going to be talking about how, as we get older, our performance can decline, but probably not as much as you might think it does. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it's really not as bad as I thought. Let's get into it. Well guys, this is also the weekly running and training vlog, where the main purpose of this video is for you to tell me about your week of running. I want to hear about your successes, and I definitely want to hear about those setbacks. So let's get into it. Let's learn what you can expect as you get older as an athlete. And this is particularly for runners, just because that's probably why you're watching me. We do talk about running a lot on this channel, but it's going to be the same for whatever activity you do. I did come across a couple of articles on Training Peaks that kind of led me to this topic, so I will link to both of those in the show notes below. And naturally, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you do as you've been getting older, as you've been an aging athlete. And I think most of us can fall into that category as an aging athlete, right? But it turns out that there's a lot of reasons for us to keep going as we get older. Like obviously our peak years are going to be 25 to 35. That's kind of normal, right? That's kind of the expectation. That's what we expect young people to be a lot faster, kind of at the peak of their athletic career. But what I was most happy to see is that the declines aren't precipitous. Like you don't just fall off a cliff, but you do have to keep putting in the work. And I think that is where a lot of older athletes struggle. I think maybe they feel like, well, they've done the work and their focus kind of shifts. And that's totally fine. But if your focus hasn't shifted and you still want to put in the work, you're going to want to hear this. So there have been a number of studies that have shown that we can generally expect about a 10% decline in our VO2 max between ages 35 and 55. That's a 20-year span. All right, I think a 10% decline, that doesn't strike me as absolutely terrible. But get this, there was another study done on masters athletes between the ages of 50 and 82. And those athletes, they continued to compete over a 10-year period that the study took place. And get this, those athletes that continued to compete, they showed a lower decline in their VO2 max than similar athletes that ran, that worked out, but didn't compete. And this is where the good news really comes in, because as older athletes, studies have shown that that slight decline in VO2 max, that may be countered by an older athlete's ability to deal with discomfort while they're working out, running, cycling, rowing, whatever your choice of activity is. And that reason is probably why when you go to races, you see a lot of athletes in their 40s and 50s continually be able to hang with people in their 20s and 30s. And I remember it myself. I remember going to races when I started running in my late 20s. I remember going to races and I remember seeing older athletes that would still be able to hang with me. And I remember being surprised, but now I am at those athletes' ages. Yeah, it's not surprising. You just got to keep putting in the work. So what kind of work are we talking about? Well, the work that we're talking about is not just going out for a run. That doesn't seem to, I don't want to say it doesn't seem to do much, but it doesn't do as much as high intensity work. So a lot of older athletes, they kind of get to the point where they don't want to hurt anymore. They just want to go out and they just want to take it easy. They just want to go for an easy run, go out for an easy cycle. And although the dropping of a VO2 max it's inevitable with age, like we know that's going to happen as we get older, what isn't inevitable is the choices you make. So the choices of workouts that you do. You get this, athletes between the ages of 50 and 70 that continue to do high intensity interval training, and you know what we're talking about? We're talking about going out, knocking out these intervals to where we're really getting our heart rate up. Their aerobic capacity, so their VO2 max, drops at about 0.5% a year, up until they reach about 70. But this is the surprising part, and this is why you're going to want to incorporate a little bit of effort into your runs, because those athletes that don't incorporate high intensity interval training, their aerobic capacity, their VO2 max declines by 1 to 1.5% per year. And that's starting at just age 50. Is that crazy? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to put in a bit of an effort. And I know it's tough. I know it's easier said than done. I'm sitting here in front of a camera telling you to do it. I'm comfortable. I'm in my air-conditioned home. It seems very easy for me to tell you to go out and do it. In fact, I feel motivated to go out and do it. I know that's not going to happen because I've already got my run in, but it's funny how that works. I often feel like going for a run when I know I'm not going to go for a run. And then when I do, I feel less like it. Does that happen to anyone else? But here's the thing. Even though you need to keep doing your high intensity interval training, if you want to like reach your potential, to be the best that you can be as you get older, it does come with a little bit of risk, right? We all know the terrible twos, the too much, too soon, too fast. If we do too much speed work, it's likely we're going to get injured. So we have to take that into account when we're thinking about how much we're going to do. Obviously, as we get older, we still need to toe that line in our training. And that line is doing some interval training in order to reach our potential, but not stepping over that line and getting injured. I guess the struggle never ends, does it? So this is what the Training Peaks article talks about as far as how you can kind of straddle that line and get to a point where you can do some high interval training without actually getting injured. and it's the training concepts of dose and density. Dose is how hard your actual workouts are, and density is how closely spaced they are. So for a lot of us, let's say in half marathon training, we usually have scheduled 2 hard workouts a week, right? We usually have intervals on one day, we have a tempo run on another day. So a high dose interval workout might be something that I did last week. I did 1 kilometer repeats with 400 meters recovery in between. But sometimes I'll go out and I'll just do strides. And strides are a chance for me to just get my legs turning over, but I keep those very short, as you're supposed to with strides. And usually I'll do something like 8 to 10 30-second intervals with 30 seconds or a minute break in between. That would be a low dose workout. Then there's density, and of course we've got the 2 workouts a week that I think a lot of people follow, just because generally when you follow a plan, most people go week to week. It just works out with the work schedule, and it's easy. We've got these ready-made blocks with a week. But perhaps as you're getting older, maybe a high density workout schedule, like 2 workouts a week, maybe that's a little too much. You might want to spread that out and do those 2 workouts over, say, 9 or 10 days. It's going to lower the density, and with that lowering of the density, while still giving you the benefits of doing your high interval workouts, it's also going to lower your chance of injuries. But let's get back to dose for a second, because perhaps you're not doing too much dose workouts. You're not doing too much high interval workouts, or perhaps you're seeing this and you think maybe I should sprinkle a little bit of higher effort stuff into my workouts, and that's great, but you've got to be careful, right? You've got to be careful. Can't do too much too soon. Remember, terrible twos, the best way to get injured. In fact, they pretty much guarantee an injury if you do too much, you do too fast workouts, and you do everything too soon. It's a tried and true method of injury, I'm telling you. So mess around with it. Maybe start off with 30-second intervals with a couple of minutes break in between, and then if you are tolerating that well over a week, over a couple of weeks, slowly build it up. Don't just jump into a high dose workout or a high density workout schedule before you get used to it. Because my friends, we got nothing but time if we want to keep injury away. And really, what else are we going to do? We want to be as healthy as we can be. We want to be the best athlete we can be. And when it comes down to it, if we do our training at a gradual basis, we will feel a lot better about that training. It won't be so all-encompassing. We won't be so ridiculously tired at the end of a week if we slowly work our way up to it. If you do that over the years, over the decades, you will be reducing the drop of VO2 max and making yourself as fit as you can be at any age. So one more thing, because it's not just about aerobic capacity, let's also talk about muscle strength, because that is something else that definitely declines with age, right? Well, there was a study in 2011 that looked at 40 athletes, and those athlete subjects were between the ages of 40 and 81 years of age. The athletes in the study worked out on average 4 to 5 times a week, and the study shows that we are actually capable of preserving muscle strength and muscle mass as we age. And the athletes in the study demonstrated that peak torque strength did not decline until the ages between 60 and 69. You get this is especially interesting because it was found that there was no significant decline in torque strength between the ages of 60 to 70 to 80. So it looks like that there is some decline when we get to around 60, but after that doesn't decline much at all if you are a lifelong athlete. And as we all know, strength training is the fountain of youth, and this study actually demonstrates it. Guys, we've got to keep going. There's no taking a foot off the gas. Got to be a lifelong athlete. And with that, I had a pretty good week of running. But I am not going to share my week of running with you because I haven't actually done it. I have pre-filmed this video, but if you want to see what I did this week and where I did it, I do have a link to my Strava account in the show notes below. But of course, I want to hear from you. I want to hear about your week of running, your successes, your setbacks, and how you plan to move forward, aging. Are you going to do more strength work? Are you going to continue working out aerobically and strength? Let me know. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.